proposes amendment number 40.
Mr. President, this body has spent 100.
Under the previous order, there will now be 4 minutes of debate, equally divided prior to a vote in relation to Hawley Amendment number 40.
Mr. President,
Proceed.
this body has spent to date $113 billion on the war in Ukraine and counting. And yet, we do not have any direct oversight of any of the money that is being spent. My amendment is very simple. Let's create one government watchdog, not 2, not 3, not 20, one government watchdog to oversee every cent that is spent on Ukraine, to report back to this Congress and to the American people as to how their hard-earned money is being spent. Currently, there are dozens of reporting requirements. There are multiple bureaucrats who are involved. Listen, we learned this the hard way in Afghanistan, where after years of lack of oversight, billions of dollars wasted, and tragically many lives lost, this body finally created a special inspector general to oversee the Afghanistan effort and reporting requirements, to report back to the public on what we knew and were learning. That is what we should do in this case, Mr. President. I urge a yes vote on this amendment.
The senator from Virginia.
Mr. President, I don't have an objection to the notion that the funds we are spending together in Ukraine should have careful analysis. We know from past experience, if there's not that careful analysis done, there can be problems. This is not the bill to do it. When we do war authorizations, we don't put other amendments on, no matter how good there be, if they're extraneous to the war authorization. The 1991 and 2002 war authorizations did not include additional items, no matter how meritorious they might have been. And so why this idea is an idea that I think people can gravitate toward. I think this is the wrong bill, the wrong vehicle to insert something about Ukraine into this repeal of the Iraq war authorizations. We've not done a repeal for 52 years. The authorizations themselves were clean authorizations, and I would urge a no vote so that the repeal, when we vote on it tomorrow, will be a clean repeal. I would urge my colleagues to vote no.
Mr. President.
The senator from Idaho.
Yeah, Mr. President, very briefly, first of all, I want to compliment Senator Hawley for pursuing this route. There isn't a person in this room, there isn't a person in America that doesn't want to see that every dollar spent by the taxpayers is looked after. In this particular instance, I'm going to oppose this simply because there are already 64 ongoing or planned audits and reports on U.S. assistance to Ukraine. This piece of legislation would require a quarterly schedule, and that actually reduces the number. For instance, USAID direct budgetary support comes every 2 months. So this is being looked after unlike Iraq and Afghanistan, where we're talking about enormous amounts of money, not that this isn't a large amount, but those were enormous, and the work in auditing was not very good. In this case, it is very good. We've been looking at it in the Intelligence Committee, we've been looking at it in the Foreign Relations Committee, and have found zero siphoning of U.S. dollars. So this really is an expenditure that is not necessary because it is being looked after already. So I would urge a no vote on this amendment. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President, do I have any time?
The senator from Missouri.
You
have 49 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would just say, in response to my friend's point about there being 60-plus reporting requirements already in place, that's part of the problem. When everybody's in charge, nobody's in charge. Currently, the oversight requirements are spread across 3 different agencies, the Inspector General for the State Department and the Defense Department and USAID, each have a little piece of this, dozens of disparate requirements. Let's unify it. We've done this before. One Inspector General, one staff, one set of requirements, make it public, give the American people the accountability they deserve. I urge a yes vote. I yield for it.
Questions on the amendment? Is there a sufficient second? There appears to be. The clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Baldwin, Mr. Barrasso, Mr. Bennett, Mrs. Blackburn.